we live in a technological world that is obsessed with technology, and it's not stopped, and it's not going to stop. We have phones in our hands. I have 2 cell phones. I have 4 computer screens in front of me. We never stop doing technology, no matter if we're making millions of dollars or, quite frankly, if we're minimum wage. We can't. I know homeless people with cell phones. It's one of these things where we can't stop doing this. And if we start teaching these things at earlier and earlier ages, being a software engineer sounds complicated. But the reality is it's not any more complicated than looking at a toilet, if you've looked at enough toilets and unplugging them and figuring out how to get them to run again. I look at a car and I say, that's way too complicated for me. And of course, I write software engineering programs that are extremely complicated. So I think that with enough schooling and enough exposure, where we can sort of incentivize people to be interested in this stuff, because guess what? This is the #1 job out there, and there's unending demand for it. And you don't have to be the world's most complex software engineer. There's jobs for people who create websites. You can go to boot camp. One of my friends in here did 6 months, and you can have a software engineering job. Now again, he's a smart fellow, and there needs to be jobs for people who aren't such smart fellows. And I think AI actually does help that. AI you can use AI as a helper in your job, and there's people who want to regulate AI. There's going to be jobs, there's always going to be jobs in different fields that are for people that aren't ambitious or don't necessarily want, the best paying jobs in the world. We always need to have those kinds of jobs. There'll be always jobs for those types of things, but we need to form kind of. Well, I mean, there's recreational type jobs. There's hospitality type jobs. There's certainly more egalitarian like access. For example, like one of the biggest jobs that's come up over the last several decades, or I'm sorry, several years, is the concept of a creator. This concept of I was an early webcaster, not as early as some, but in 2015 it wasn't that popular to be webcasting, and now we have this situation where you can create content, quote unquote, on Twitter, on X, on wherever, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitch, and get paid. And this has allowed people who are creative, especially people in the urban community who I know, who have been able to go from a life of drug dealing to a life of telling jokes or giving out their favorite talent, and all of a sudden making 6 figures and being able to get by.
But that is kind of like hitting the jackpot, because like most people who try and fail, and here's the main issue that I see with AI. We've always had.
Let me just jump in. YouTube is paying billions of dollars to somebody. I mean, the person that can make their entire paycheck off YouTube, I understand. That is a rare phenomenon. But there's a new avenue and a new career possible for people who want to explore the arts that has never happened before. If you're a comedian, you had one chance, which is to go to the Comedy Cellar and knock the crowd out. That was it. And today, if you have a talent, and there's so many people who have all kinds of crazy talents. Who was that creator that was doing the yum yum, thing? You can find a way to create and become talented without necessarily living in a big city where you have to go to LA to make it, or things like that. The internet has made that a little bit more egalitarian than it used to be. It's brought down some of the barriers. Justin Bieber, social media star into a superstar, never had to deal with living in LA or record labels deciding if he was too good or not good enough. The people decided it. And I think that, this is a wonderful thing that's happened. And it's going to happen more and more with every form of talent. So I think that there'll always be jobs, and it's one thing that humanity over 200 years has never failed to have is jobs and work for people. And I think the people who think AI is going to stop that, and I'll let you go ahead to Kat in 1 second, I think it merits, I work at an AI software company. It merits thinking about, it merits debating, it merits kind of conversation, but it doesn't necessarily merit, hyperventilating fear. Until it actually starts to happen. Right now we have record unemployment. So I don't think we have to wait till the house is on fire to get the fire extinguisher. But if the house is fireproof, the house is doing fine, it's never been on fire, it's, all the plans are in place, I don't think you have to scream that a fire is going to happen tomorrow. There's some happy medium of let's keep an eye on this, let's make sure it works out. But we also right now have had tremendous success in our economy. And the only thing that's, I think, going to stop that is regulation. Sorry, I'll let you talk now.
No worries. My fear is this. So in the past, we've seen, there have been many industries that have been replaced. And what happens is, people are upset, people are out of jobs, but then new occupations come to be. And that is true if you cycle through history. However, in this case, I guess my concern with AI in particular is that it's going to replace such a massive group of people all at once pretty quickly. I don't think it's going to take quite a long time. And so I think in that situation, yes, some people will go into tech, and your idea of teaching that more in schools and being able to break it down, I agree with that. I think being a mechanic is not the easiest thing too. So why can't a mechanic or somebody who can do mechanics can learn how to do, some coding? But even coders are going to be largely replaced. And yes, we're going to have new jobs like prompt engineer and things like that. I fear that the scale of the displacement is going to be so much more massive than anything we've seen in the past. And while I think some things will be reshaped, and I think the things that our value as humans is going to be more important, and maybe creative pursuits and things like that. But when it comes to like the mass scale of it, I don't know if we're going to be able to deal with that, and we should prepare.
Well, it's in the back of my mind too. But if there's one thing that people say that they respect or admire me for, it's for courage. And I think we have to go boldly into this future one way or the other. It's not. The future doesn't ask you for permission. We're going to go get there one way or the other, and we can't stop what's coming. We can't stop people from researching. Look at the NeurIPS conference. I know people like Harrison attend every year. Big AI conference. Thousands of people, more than ever, doing their research, publishing it. These people aren't going to stop because I say so or the government says so. They might do it in Europe. They might do it in China. Go ahead, Harrison.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say that I don't really think that AI is going to replace all the humans. It's so far from perfect. It's a lot more hyped up. It's great. It definitely augments people. But
well, you're one of the people at the forefront of the field. Nearly have a PhD in this, or maybe you have one already. I forget. But
nearly.
But it's one of these things where even if what Kat is saying is true, which it might be, we don't know for sure, right? We have to dare to embrace the future. We have to be able to say that we have agency. We can survive whatever's coming. This is America. We had no problem surviving the Industrial Revolution. We had no problem surviving the electricity revolution. We'll have no problem surviving the AI revolution because we can.
Yes.
That's the American spirit.
Is like 300 years ago, 70+% of people were working in the fields.
Right.
And now they're not. It's only like 2% of the population that works in agriculture and farming. That's a pretty big displacement. Maybe the scale of this one will be faster, but as I said, it could be far from perfect, and there's definitely going to be a lot of jobs for humans still.
Hey, we're going to have
Happy to chat offline.
Yeah, and we'll have to deal with the robotic revolution at some point, really changing the way manufacturing and things work. I'm sure if you guys saw Elon Musk's recent robots, they look incredible, and one has to think immediately, well, what good is there going to be for me in a warehouse or something like that if this robot can do my job 100 times better? It never complains, it never wants cash, it never wants healthcare. It's you can treat it the way you want to treat it. It's always going to be working. That is a little scary, but we get, you could say the same thing about a horse. You could say the same thing about who's going to take care of the horses, what's going to happen to my stable. Those aren't things people worry about anymore. And I think that...
I agree with...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, just to jump in real
Please.
quick, Martin, a great point. And I agree with you that it's not so much it is the volume of change, but it's also the speed of change, right? It's how fast these changes are going to happen. And what do you think Congress could actually do to soften the blow of how quick that change is happening today?
Yeah, I don't think it's a blow. I think we should accelerate it. I think that the AI is going to upskill people. I can ask ChatGPT questions that I don't have to call a lawyer to ask. If that makes my lawyer, in the market for legal advice more competitive, then I think that's great. I think that
No, same.
That we can
100%. But I'm saying, if you were in Congress, like, what would you do to?
I would stop
make that.
I would
change quicker.
I don't know if I could make it quicker because I think it's going to happen no matter what. And I think even if somebody tries to stop it, it'll happen like the Volstead Act and other things like that, where you really can't force a market to not exist. A black market will pop up. We make jokes about it in the AI community that people are going to be trading neural networks in blind alleys, under sports coats or under trench coats. And I think that, ultimately, to have this unbelievable innovation that's like some people in the AI community call it the God machine. It's not quite that spectacular like Harrison says, but it is amazing after programming for 30 years and then watching this computer program like start to think. It is really incredible from a philosophical, almost religious, but of course technical perspective that we've been able to do this. And that's what Americans do. And guess where all this stuff has come from? A lot of it's come from our country, that our intrepid people that get together and push the world forward. We created the space race. We did a lot of this stuff in AI and software thanks to America. I have to give credit to our Canadian friends who have done a lot of this too. You can't talk about AI without talking about Canada. They got a couple of lucky wins there. But, all these wonderful AI companies are based in America. OpenAI that went boldly and discovered this in conjunction with Google as well, who really discovered it. OpenAI commercialized it. Amazing success. And we have to nurture that. We have to reward that. We have to, and we do. Look at Sam Altman, who, when he was fired inadvertently kind of a month ago, we all saw how much of a rock star he's become. A well-known tech journalist visited with Sam and went on tour, if you will, with OpenAI's team, and they said he said that he saw nothing like this since the Beatles. And it really is the case that these are the people. Look at Elon Musk. He's our rock star of 2023. He's the Jimi Hendrix. He's the Rolling Stones.
Dude, I totally agree with you, but I'm saying and I'm team 100%. But from a policy perspective,
I think if somebody wanted to regulate,
how do we implicate that?
It's simple. If somebody wanted to regulate AI, I would say no. And I would only have 1 out of 400 votes, right? But I think would have the command, presence to influence other folks in Congress, because again, I'm an active software engineer, whereas the average person in Congress may not know how to spell artificial intelligence or understand what a convolutional neural network is or something like that. They may look at me and say, Martin, what do you make of all this? And the same way I might look at somebody who's a decorated Army veteran, I might say, hey, do you really think we should go into this war or not? Or what should we do? I might whisper that to them, even though to the constituents, I'm supposed to appear all knowing and wise. I might ask somebody who has experience in this to say, I trust you, I know you, let me hear what you have to say. So hopefully some of that expertise can be brought to bear here, because I think we're going to create more jobs. This is a great form of equality for people who didn't go to college. A lot of the young black men I met in prison, they all said, look, Martin, I wanted to be like you, but I didn't have any skill. I didn't have any education, and there's no way for me to catch up. I didn't study math, so now I can barely do my fractions, and you want me to study calculus. It doesn't make sense. And through AI, through things like OpenAI, you can take people like that and really give them an equalizing chance in life that they never had before. I went to City.
To Kat's point, if this is all going to be, we're all software engineers in the end, or 90% of the code is written by AI, and then you put your 10% on it or whatever it looks like. How? Again, I'm just trying to press you a little bit.
It's fine.
How are we going to do to implement to enable that?
I think you're going to see some of the most amazing innovations accelerate. For example, the Google DeepMind code, under the strength of DeepMind, it was able to solve a new math theorem, which may not have ever happened before. Under AI's control, chemists may be able to synthesize new molecules faster or more easily. Under AI,
I don't want to excite you too much, Smart, but I asked ChatGPT to come up with chemically stable variants of common drugs.
It's going to be a while. It's gonna be a while before ChatGPT can synthesize anything. But I think that when it comes to that's a lofty goal. But we all thought these were lofty goals 5 years ago. If you told me you'd have, I started an NLP company. Very few people know this. In 2015, called Simple App, and my goal of Simple App was just to get NLP tools into the hands of my deal makers in pharma, so that they can study more molecules faster and faster, so we can make deals faster. And this is what Vivek Ramaswamy did. We had basically the same business model. He hired about 10 times as many deal makers. We call them BD people. I see my former head of BD was in here a second ago. And these deal makers go around the world to universities, pharma companies, whoever has interesting new discovery, and they go make a deal. And Vivek hired 100 people to do this, which I had one of the biggest teams in all of pharma, including Pfizer, Merck, and Novartis. And Vivek just toppled it all by hiring several hundred people to go scour the world for molecules. And he made a fortune doing it, as did I. And I think that, I needed NLP workers to help sift through this gigantic amount of information. I said, let me get NLP to help me, and let me get AI to help me. People don't even talk about NLP anymore. It's now sort of been subsumed into the large language model studies. And, And so, and so the point is those people are now sort of turbocharged, and they can find the asset, the drug, the potential cure, going from company to industry to patient. What's really important is the person who has osteogenesis imperfecta, a good friend of mine who's dying of this terrible bone disease. There's no drug for this in the world at all. And the reason that it's never, sort of had a drug for it is possibly because there is a drug for it in some obscure Australian university, and nobody's ever figured out to call them and go develop it. And with NLP, these search tools now become powerful. So every industry, that's just one small example, but every industry can be reshaped by AI and made more efficient, made more competitive. So we just go to the next level. So yeah, software engineering is going to be a really tricky thing in the next 10 years, because what took 10 people to make a website in React really functional front end to back end may take one person half their time of half a job. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? What about those other 9.5 people? Well, I think those other 9.5 people can now go to the next level and say, well, I couldn't do optimization of, an important program before because it's too complicated. I don't know all this stuff. But now with GPT, I kind of can. I have this shot in the arm. And now we're going to have super optimized programs. And then when those people get automated, then the next challenge is going to be things like, how do I make this computer even cheaper or even faster or whatever it is? We can't even imagine what the next steps are. And I think the imagination...
Something you said...
just finish real quick, Lasan. The imagination leads us to think there's nothing left, and that we're going to have a society barren of people that have nothing to do. And I'm not trying to make fun of this, because Catherine's point is really serious and it's important. But I think that because we can't imagine what comes next, we just see the React developer out of a job, because ChatGPT can do React better now than React developers can. And what's going to happen to the React developer who is making $180,000 a year, paying good tax money, taking care of 4 or 5 kids, and now that React developer is automated away? Well, I don't think that React developer is just going to sit on their hands and society is going to go broke because GPT is taking their job away. I think that React developer is going to say, maybe I should be a Verilog developer. Maybe I should make FPGAs. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do that. And it's just going to require them to up their game with the tools that we created. Lasan is a good friend. I just want to hear from you.
Hey, something you said earlier, I think you said 5 years ago, there's things now that we weren't imagining, but say, you go back 15 years and I think the idea of having smartphones as ubiquitous as they are, that would have been like a massive ambition. We did accomplish that. And I think that highlights another way. And the same thing with the software developer, or somebody who gets let go from their current job. It's like they're not going to be, falling into the world as it was in 2010. It's going to be the world as it is in 25 or 2026, and that world is going to provide AI on those smartphones. We'll have homeless assistant AI and job search AI, and so our ability to collaborate and efficiently manage kind of the employment situation is just going to be much more effective at it.
Yeah, I think so too. And in fact, it brings me to a question of as I sit here, half my brain was imagining what do programmers do after this happens? And hello? Can you unmute real quick? Okay. So, thank you.
Sorry, who were you trying to mute or unmute?
No, it's all right. They just had a loud mic. So, one of the things I was imagining is, okay, what does that React developer actually do? And I was thinking about actually AR and VR. And it's very, very hard to make tools for AR, VR. If you've ever tried to program for those things, you kind of don't even know where to start. There's this big 3D landscape that's really hard to work on. But with AI now, you can actually make 3D landscapes and assets with the push of a button, which you couldn't do before. And now we may see this metaverse, idea actually get built and actually like really exist, and we might actually enjoy a VR world that we couldn't enjoy before, that will increase productivity, will increase enjoyment, will increase jobs for, as Kat said earlier. Where are the people who do creative things going to go? That's a new venue for them as well. And we're actually becoming more creative. More and more we have creators, a whole area of the world that didn't exist before. It's entertainment without the fame. That's what a creator is to me. It's entertainment without Hollywood. And I think that even people who are programmers, there's a bunch of programmer influencers, another word we use, content creators that are programmers. And if you were to ask me, you could make a living being a programming influencer, I would have laughed at you and said, there's no freaking way. But these are people who make videos about how to program, get you excited about programming. And I know one that makes $1 million a year teaching.
Developers.
Exactly. And I think that, those influencer possibilities are not for everyone. Like Kat said, you still have to make it the same way you might have to make it in Hollywood. Not everyone is destined to make a ton of money being an influencer. But I do think that we're going to see AI allow more people to sort of get to a place where we can build cooler and nicer things. So that was just a quick thought. Bitcoin, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, Martin. Well, not to ask. I will agree with much of what was being said. I had a professor in 1981 or 82 who was talking about this whole issue of how agriculture was at one point 90% of the workforce, and it became 2% of the workforce. This is not new. This is not different. And further, what I would add to that is that there'll be businesses, industries, jobs that come out of AI that no one right now can think of or dream of, just like people didn't know that Uber would come out of mobile phones. No one had any idea that it would come out of mobile phones and smartphones. There is one problem with AI that I think is not necessarily an economic problem. And I think that generally when it comes to most technologies tend to actually create opportunity. It will destroy some opportunity, but it will create new opportunity.
Get to the point, homie.
So these fears of the economic problems come out and say everybody's going to be...
I should disconnect it.
Will enable you to do things.
This guy's still talking.
That you might not have been able to do before. It'll be enabling technology, and that's actually
wrap that shit up, B.
Will enable people to
wrap
do
it
things
up
that they might have wanted to do, but didn't necessarily have the underlying skill set to do it. That actually creates jobs. That creates opportunity. It creates
wrap that shit up.
The bigger problem with AI is that it also creates an easier way alter and influence the political process through the creation of fakes. That's actually a really big problem because it can have tremendous influence on the political process because people are more able to easily confuse, obfuscate, misdirect, lie, propagandize because of the tools of AI. That actually, I think, is the real problem. I don't think there's a big economic problem. I think how it alters our culture and alters it politically is actually a huge risk. And I don't know how you deal with that. I don't know how you fight it. I don't know how that is countered. As for the economic, there'll be growing pains like there is with anything. I mean, word processing eliminated a lot of needs for secretaries, but it turns out that people still need assistants. They just don't call them secretaries anymore. So I think these worries and concerns are really overblown and overstated, and it comes from not understanding what's happened in the last few hundred years more than anything else.
Cool. Thanks for your 2 cents. Chris, do you have a question?
Somebody was before me, though. Go ahead.
Okay.
Whoever's before me.